was going into the relationship I had with my ex-wife. I think I went a little bit into that. And anyway, I'll just stay on that for now. There is something else I want to talk about, but I'll finish up this story real quick and then I'll end it there for a little bit and pick back up. But things with my ex-wife were whatever. I will say that, and some of you may have done something similar. Part of the reason that we even got involved is because as Jehovah's Witnesses, there's not a lot of opportunities. I mean, there are opportunities, but there's not as many as there would be. If you had the whole world at your disposal, you're kind of like locked into like who you know in a local congregation or circuit, maybe a district if you're popular enough. That's just how it is. Sure, you can now things you can have friends in different parts of the country, but again, there's what, according to their numbers, 8 or 9 million Jehovah's Witnesses. I kind of have my doubts about that number, to be honest with you. But regardless, there's just not as many options. And so if you do have a option that you think is good enough, it's almost like you're in a situation where you're desperate, and that's pretty much how I felt. And I'm not saying that to be insulting or anything, it's just the truth. And just a little more history. My ex, she was, as I mentioned, I think in the previous episode, she was already married when we got involved. And so like I'm applying that to her too. She obviously jumped at an opportunity because that's the goal for witnesses, is to get married. It's either that, and if you can't get married, you better like pioneer or something if you want to remain relevant in that community. Otherwise you'll just be kind of like that person that comes and has a few close friends maybe, but everybody else pretty much just like, it's just surface level relationship. Especially if you're a sister, right? A lot of times they end up with like a child or something out of wedlock, and they end up getting in a little bit of trouble, and everybody like tries to be nice to them, but it's like a fake nice. Anyway, my point is, your options are limited. Sometimes when your options are limited, you make choices that aren't going to end up successful. And I felt like that's where I was. So like, even though I had my doubts growing up and I was somewhat rebellious, you got to remember, during this time, I still, at my core, believe this is the truth, and that I'm flawed, and that I am a problem, and that I need to make adjustments, and I need to stop being a phony or whatever you want to call it. But as the relationship went on, and as many do in that community, we were just very different people. And it wasn't that it was miserable or bad in any way. It just was not. And I'll go into this at another time too. It's just not what a healthy, loving, like soulmate kind of relationship should feel like. And I can say that because I can contrast two different relationships, like the one and ones that aren't the one. But that's for another time. In any case, eventually you just grow further and further apart, and one thing leads to another. I'm not going to go into very specific detail, but I will just say that both of us ended up getting involved with other people, and then about 8 years after being together, we got a divorce, and it was probably one of the cleanest, easiest divorces out there. I've only been fellowshipped. If my memory serves me correctly, I think she got reproved this time, so it was flopped from the first time where she got disfellowshipped and I got reproved. Now it was I got disfellowshipped, she got reproved. In any case, the contact stopped. I didn't want to drag it on, or I didn't want it to come across the wrong way if there was contact. So it was very limited, and that might have been a two-way street there. Those feelings, I'm not sure. In any case, we split, and at first it was not easy, I'll be honest. I had already started a new relationship that was less healthy than the previous one. Unfortunately, it didn't last long, but I ended up getting out of that pretty quickly. And from there, I jumped around from relationships to single life to relationships to single life. And I would say that at that period of time was like my wild phase. It's probably the best way to put it. That was my wild phase. I kind of let loose. And I think having done that, I think every young person needs to do that, male or female. You need to have a phase in your life where you just let loose and you kind of like experiment with different things, chase the things you kind of like or aren't interested in. Maybe you end up liking them more, maybe you end up liking them less. You got to have some bad relationships to understand what it takes to have a good relationship, I think. At least it helps to have those tough relationships, those crazy relationships. Any case, I'll talk about like my journey of waking up. So we can always go back to relationship talk later. I don't want to get off track. So I'm divorced. I'm in a relationship. Break. That relationship was like on again, off again. That's why I say it wasn't healthy. But during this whole period, part of the time I'm going to every meeting. I think I even made an attempt to get reinstated it was probably about a year time frame. And yeah, I'm just keeping certain things a secret. The girl I was on again, off again with, she actually studied for, I want to say, like a 6-week period early on in the relationship. She met my mom, and my mom set her up with this study, and then their goal was to get her to come in, but in the meantime they were telling her like, you can't talk to Josh, which that just wasn't going to happen. That kind of like turned her off to the whole thing completely, and she stopped, and then we weren't together much longer after that anyway. So we break up. I'm doing the meeting still, and I remember sitting there. There's one specific moment that I always remember where things changed. I had questions and doubts before, but I hadn't explored those. I think I've done what many of you have done, and many people still do, is you kind of just push it to the side and say, hey, I just don't understand, but maybe at some point I will. But I'm unworried about it right now. That's what I did. And sitting at this meeting in the Watchtower was probably around the springtime, I want to say, and it was about, they're starting to talk about the memorial and the partakers and the amount of partakers that there were. And that number around that time in the 90s, it had gone down, down, down. It was just going down every year. The number of the 144,000 partakers down every year. I think we had like one in our hall, and it was a big deal, right? Like, oh, she's annoying, man. I got these new sneakers, and they got really thick soles, and I was hitting the gas and the brake at the same time. No bueno. Anyway, so we're sitting there, and it's talking about now, present day at that time, the number had been increasing year to year by a lot. Like from the 90s till then, and I hadn't known this because so many witnesses, like, they just don't pay attention to the things that actually matter. And people in the world do the same thing with various things. Like, people in general just don't pay attention to details that actually matter. Now, 10, 15 years later, that number has increased by hundreds, thousands every year. And so now it's way higher than it used to be in the 90s. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, wait a second. Because when that number was decreasing in the 90s, the message was, we are getting closer to the end because the number of 144,000 left alive on Earth is dwindling. And they might even use the word dwindling. That sounds like a word that they would use. So, you're saying to convince people low number every year for remaining left of the 144,000, not much time left. Now the reverse is happening. So is time getting added on? And that was basically the question in the article. Should we assume that because the number's going up that we're not close to the end anymore? Absolutely not. Something like to that extent. And I just remember being like, well, you can't have it both ways. And at that point, like in that moment, I was on, iPhones were a thing at that time now. I went online, I said, I don't even care. Like, if this is gonna be the end for me, it's the end for me. Technically, I wouldn't make it into the new system anyway if all the rules and beliefs Jehovah's Witnesses had were true. So I was like, what I got to lose? And I find JW Facts. And I probably spent the next few weeks just immersed reading. It was great. I read Crisis of Conscience by Raymond Franz. Great. At the time, I really enjoyed it. And did a bunch of research. And was like, I was printing out all this stuff from their own publications. Some of them were older ones that had been discontinued, but nonetheless, they were all from their publications. And I reached out to my mom and I was like, did you know X, Y, Z? And her response was, oh no, you need to talk to your dad. She didn't want to say anything. And so my dad agreed to meet me. We met in like a Wawa parking lot. Like, I couldn't come to the house. It had to be a Wawa parking lot, like a mile from the house. So we meet there, and I have a stack about this thick of stuff to show him from their own publications where obviously they were wrong about a prediction. They contradicted themselves. They changed the rules on something, whether it was blood or something else. And bunch of stuff, Freemasonry, all kinds of crazy stuff. Like some of the quotes that were just obviously absurd for the time, even for the time, but like even more absurd as time went on. And he didn't look at any of it. He just said, "You're an apostate," and I pretty much looked at him like that's all you got. And I knew then, I was like, well, this isn't gonna go well. So we ended up parting ways, and we really haven't spoken since. There's been a few more interactions that I'll save for like separate episodes because it's actually crazy stories, but that was it. And yeah, I think from that moment on, I was awake that, oh shit, this is a cult. This is nonsense. This isn't something that I want to be a part of. And I knew I couldn't do it anymore. I could fake it and I could play games here and there, and I'll go into some of those stories at some point. But I just couldn't fake it anymore. I was done with the... you know what? That's a bad way to put it. I shouldn't say I couldn't fake it. I was faking it as far as like not living by how they wanted. So I knew I was like a phony and like I really shouldn't be reinstated according to the rules. So what I think I really mean is like I didn't want to be a part of it anymore because now I don't believe it anymore. I don't see the point of it. Now it makes sense as a kid why I never wanted to go. Why I always wanted to like have friends outside of it. I think that's an important thing that people within, especially young people, I don't know how if you don't know any better, you don't know any better, but my advice would be if you are in it and you're seeing this video, make friends when you have the chance outside the cult. Just do it. Make friends with people that you're drawn to and that are drawn to you, that are good people, that it doesn't matter that you guys might have a different religious, political, or whatever kind of belief. Those are the people like that helped me a lot, like so much, especially as I was like a little bit older, but I always had good relationships, whether it was in school, at work, and people that I just came across throughout life. For whatever reason, while I was a Jehovah's Witness, I didn't limit myself to just associating with Jehovah's Witnesses. If there was an opportunity for me where it wasn't going to cause me problems in my Jehovah's Witness life, I was being friendly and hanging out and getting to know non-Jehovah's Witnesses. That was the best thing I ever did, and they were some of the best people I've ever made friendships and relationships with. So I'm thankful for that, and that would be my advice to people that are younger, still in, maybe even older, like my age when they left, and just make friends. There's good people out there. Now I will say this from experience: most people are very selfish and self-serving, and just like witnesses are stuck in their beliefs, they're stuck in theirs, and a lot of times there's similar beliefs that the witnesses even have, and they're just so rigid and unreasonable and arbitrary, just nonsensical. There's a lot of those out there, but there's a lot of good people too. So that's my advice. Got to take care of a few things now, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. Like it, comment, subscribe, and I'll come back with another episode real soon. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one, everybody.